everyone, and welcome back to our complement video series for our upcoming Solar Valley Conference on September 14th, 2020, 8:30 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. This year's conference will examine the current public policy conditions under which solar operates, with an emphasis on creating pathways for increased deployment throughout Riverside and San Bernardino counties. The conference will focus on what decision makers are thinking and planning, and how we can coordinate as an industry to get more done. The conference will be a place where we as stakeholders can work together on a coordinated push to transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and much, much more. And now I would like to welcome SC Rise, Solar Valley Consortium Deputy Director and Professor, Fred Schwartz.
Today we have Laurie Tenhope, who is Deputy Director of the California Energy Commission's Research and Development Division. Laurie leads the state's public interest R&D that stimulates clean energy technology development. The program invests millions annually and is a catalyst for innovation, propelling California to a renewable and efficient energy future. Laurie previously served as an advisor for CEC commissioners, focusing on policy for energy efficiency, distributed energy, public interest R&D, and renewable energy transmission access. Very interesting. Previously, she managed the Energy Systems Research Office at the CEC, directing research to expand the value of distributed resources, improve electricity infrastructure, develop clean transportation alternatives, and to understand and mitigate environmental impacts. Laurie was a panelist at our solar conference last year, and I'd like to thank you very much, Laurie, for being here with us today. Please tell us what you'd like to communicate about current CEC activities, programs, and your vision for the future.
Well, hi, Fred. It's great to see you again. This year, we're all getting creative with these virtual platforms. And I must say, as nice as it is to have a way to communicate, I really miss the in-person networking. So like most of us, I'm looking forward to post-COVID where we can talk in person and network and creative problem solve together. But this is our best solution right now. I want to start by congratulating you and your partners on the Solar Valley Consortium. You know, from my vantage point, it looks like you have the vision and the attributes to really make the region a model for solar development. The Riverside, San Bernardino County area has lots of solar. It's got lower land prices, available vacant land, and transportation facilities with extensive transportation. This kind of matches up with one of our priorities, which is really to figure out how to both electrify medium and heavy duty transportation and do that in a way that integrates distributed energy resources. It looks like, you know, this geographic area is perfectly suited for that type of opportunity. So if that kind of piques your interest, watch for a future solicitation from the Energy Commission that is really designed to facilitate that research and policy goal. But I want to step back for just a second and talk a little bit about the Energy Commission, which is where I work, and especially the research program. So for those of you who don't know, the California Energy Commission is located in Sacramento. We're the state's lead energy policy organization. So what that means is we do a lot of analysis on supply and demand trends and taking a look at what our energy and climate goals and figuring out how to accelerate the achievement of those goals, either through regulatory action, policy, or programs. This year, we're developing an integrated energy policy report update. It's focusing on transportation electrification. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And how to, basically accelerate electrification in hydrogen and transportation. It's also going to have a chapter on microgrids, which might be of interest in your region as well. In addition, the Energy Commission sites power plants There's not as much as thermal or solar thermal. So the siting function for the Energy Commission is a smaller function than when the Energy Commission was created. We're also in the business of accelerating energy efficiency through building standards and appliance standards, incentivizing clean transportation infrastructure, encouraging and facilitating renewable development. And then my passion and place is research. So the research division that I oversee invests in clean energy, innovation, and entrepreneurship. We're really trying to put funding out in the marketplace that accelerates the achievement of our climate and energy goals. This week, we are celebrating a big victory for research. The Public Utilities Commission decided yesterday, they took a vote yesterday to renew the research program and to invest close to $1.5 billion over the next 10 years to continue the legacy that's been started with the research program. So that puts us and researchers on a solid footing for continuing to innovate and continue the acceleration towards our goals.
That is tremendous.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting, and we are quite thankful to the CPUC for taking that step. And they basically make that decision based on the record of the research achievements to date. And so we like to take credit for it, but we're putting the money out. We're envisioning what the research is, what the problems are, what some potential solutions are. But it's researchers at universities and labs, it's entrepreneurs, it's communities that are willing to be on the front line and take a risk and try a new technology. So it's that partnership that really, creates the successes. So, we like to think about, what are some of the challenges, and we have a lot of them. I mean, we know that our climate goals and energy goals are aggressive. And now we're seeing some of the impacts of climate change with wildfires, with extreme temperatures that we experienced last week. That we're making progress on our clean energy goals, but we still have challenges to really have a complement between the decarbonization goals and the resilience and safety goals. And so both of those are paramount. Just wanted to share what a few of the objectives are of the research program. We're really focused on expanding the development for breakthrough technologies. And we see that both through traditional research labs and national labs are kind of a foundation for a lot of the innovation. We're also really conscious of creating an entrepreneur ecosystem. Sometimes those startups spin out from universities, but sometimes they're self-initiated. And we've created what we think is a really good infrastructure to support that. We have a small grant program that's easy to apply to for prototype development. It's called the CalSeed program. Anybody can Google that and find the resource online. Initial grants are up to $150,000, and if successful in the first round, the entrepreneurs are eligible to compete for a second round up to $400,000. That grant program is supported by mentorship, and we set up 4 innovation clusters around the state. The Riverside, San Bernardino area is served by the Clean Tech San Diego cluster. And so they had a strong innovation cluster already for the San Diego region. And they've really been working to develop the partnerships throughout the Inland Empire. So that's a resource for entrepreneurs. They provide mentorship on technologies, lab facilities, connections to the energy industry. So I would really encourage any entrepreneur out there who thinks they have a good idea, go look at the Clean Tech San Diego website and check out the services that are available. We also want to drive down the cost of energy solutions, kind of the, your traditional approach. Make solar cheaper, wind cheaper. They're already cost competitive, but cheaper the better. Work on some of the integration technologies that are going to facilitate renewables like storage. So that remains a challenge. Storage prices are coming down, but we need a lot of storage, and we're finding that we need a diversity of storage. I think residential customers would like storage with smart inverters so that when the grid goes down, they have power. They don't, and of course, commercial and industrial customers are even more sensitive to resilience. And now we're looking at longer duration storage. So in the wildfire areas and the areas that have been subject to the power shutoffs, sometimes those shutoffs are for several days. And so, your storage isn't traditionally designed for several days. Then if you look at really large storage backups, like to a data center, you're really talking about a whole nother scale. So the needs of storage vary from very small to very large. And one of the niches that we're looking at is non-lithium. I think it's about 90%, something like that, of the storage grant, the storage procurement awards from the CPUC are on lithium. Great, cheapest right now, good alternative, but might have limited supplies of lithium, might have long-term, it might not have the longevity that's anticipated. So we're investing in some alternatives to make sure that we have more choices in our, basket of tools. Then I think I'd transition here to just like, what are some of the topical areas that we're interested in researching? And it's a pretty broad portfolio, because we think you need this broad scope in order to be kind of comprehensive in meeting our goals, but also the diversity of customers that are looking for clean energy solutions. So our first pillar is the entrepreneur ecosystem. I spoke about that. It's, on the ground. These, and we wanted to diversify where these resources are available. We're located in Sacramento, but, entrepreneurs are all over the state, and we wanted on the ground resources that are local and that, really know the local scene and the local needs. Our second pillar is resilience and safety. Resilience in terms of wildfires, climate extremes, having a resilient grid, hardening the grid itself, but also providing tools that are more decentralized. So customers can take control of their own resilience. And, it's not always dependent on the grid backbone. The third pillar is building decarbonization. Large amount of our energy use is in buildings. We really, we need to decarbonize that footprint. And a portion of that is also to have buildings be a resource, sometimes we say a resource to the grid, but really a better resource for the customer. So buildings can respond to changing grid conditions and changing prices. The fourth pillar is building decarb and decentralization. That is really looking at the grid size storage, distributed energy resources, smart charging for transportation, the integration of distributed energy resources that are grid facing as opposed to customer facing. The fifth pillar is industrial and agricultural innovation. Don't want to forget those, big users and, kind of foundational to California's economy. And the last one is transportation electrification. In our research program, we focus on the infrastructure. There are other programs like our Fuels and Transportation Division that focus on the vehicles, as well as the air board and the air district. So our focus is really more on the chargers and the integration with the grid and the integration with the customer. All six pillars are really done with a lens to equity. we have made a commitment. We made it before we were directed by legislation, but it's really it's super important to the Energy Commission that we distribute this funding to underserved communities and disadvantaged communities as defined by Cal EnviroScreen. So we're looking at both economic equity and also, sort of environmental areas that have some environmental degradation and really need clean energy solutions. Mm-hmm. Our legislation requires that 25% of our demonstrations are in disadvantaged communities, and an additional 10% are in low income. Right now, we have 65% of our demonstrations are in disadvantaged communities or low income. We can do more. I think it's more than just being in. So right now, we're focusing on the right location. We want to do more in terms of having concerted outreach with communities. What do communities want in clean energy? What are the priorities? How are community-based organizations connected to the research? And that's a challenge. The organizations are decentralized, don't often have a lot of resources. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to facilitate that through a couple of things. And one resource I'd point the audience to is what is the Empower platform at the Energy Commission. It's Empower with an E, empowerinnovation.net. And this is it's sort of a LinkedIn on steroids. It's a place where organizations can create a profile. Mm-hmm. What's your organization? If you're a community, maybe you're the community of Riverside, maybe you're trying to facilitate transportation electrification in a particular corridor. The community could put their desires there. Mm-hmm. Researchers could say, I'm really interested in doing a research project. I'm looking for a community partner. Mm. CBOs could talk about, what their strengths and missions are so that we can matchmake between researchers and CBOs. We don't actually do it. The platform and the players do that. So we really see that as really helping to facilitate meaningful engagement and partnerships. One of the things that Fred suggested I share with you are, what are some of the examples of interesting projects? What have we done, and what are we looking to do going forward? So I thought I'd share a couple of examples of projects that have come to fruition. Either they've completed their project or they've hit a technology milestone. So the first one is Blue Lake Rancheria microgrid. This is a microgrid up in the north area in Humboldt area. It is a microgrid that's operated by the local tribe. It serves the casino, but the casino is also a Red Cross emergency shelter for the north area. It's a relatively rural area. It has resilience challenges on the grid. Mm-hmm. And they're interested in having the microgrid pay for itself in terms of energy savings, being able to facilitate when to use their generation versus when to load shift or conserve based on rates and other factors. But they also wanted to be a resilient center, and it's proven itself a couple of times. In the wildfires last year, they were an evacuation center. They were disconnected from the grid. They operated for something like 80 minutes in an island mode. They served tens of thousands of customers, including customers with serious health conditions. And so several of those customers credited the Rancheria actually with life-saving measure, that they were able to go somewhere where they could plug in their oxygen. They had electricity available for health needs. And just last week, during the heat wave, they were also, we called our microgrids and asked, could they voluntarily either power up their backup generation or load shift, and Blue Lake was really willing to do that as well. So that's kind of a project that's operational. It's been highly successful. They're kind of really open to sharing lessons learned. They found certain things like they over specified the requirements of their microgrid. They've learned as they're doing microgrids for other portions of their energy use that maybe they don't need such a complicated, sophisticated, expensive controller. They can scale down a little bit. So they're figuring out how to save some money that way. Couple other examples. One I wanted to share is from a company called Nativists. These are a couple of ex-Navy guys that decided to create a startup, thought that they were committed to this climate mission and thought, what can we do? And their target market is room air conditioners. If you've ever lived in an apartment in your college or post-college days, room air conditioners are usually inefficient. They're really noisy. They're really big. They're hard to put in and take out. So their strategy is to reduce the energy use significantly. They're targeting a 67% reduction in energy costs. And they want this to be lightweight, the size of a computer. You could mail it. You can install it yourself. It's a plug and play type of air conditioning unit. So we think that's really kind of cool for a retrofit market, for the rental market, for low income. So we're, got our fingers crossed they'll meet their technical targets. Couple other quick examples. One is a woman-owned company called Peripheral, and they've come up with a membrane for filtering water. So they're able to, for industrial and wastewater applications, recycle a lot of water for on-site use, cheaper, with less filming up of the membrane, and they're now in the marketplace and very successful with their technology development. And the last one I wanted to mention is a solicitation that we issued a couple of years ago, and we actually have another version of it on the street right now. We call it RAMP, and I had to go back and see, what does RAMP stand for? Because we just call it RAMP. It's Realizing Accelerated Manufacturing and Production. And the idea is a startup will develop a product, and they might have a prototype, but then they have to figure out how to do their first manufacturing line. And this is to facilitate that first manufacturing line. And we, through our first solicitation, have 11 companies that are now in production in California with their technologies. So we have a solicitation on the street right now. If there are some entrepreneurs out there that think that this is the thing for them, it's open on our website.
A question. So this is really good detail. I wonder how you feel about the new area of community solar and what sort of potential you see it might have.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert at community solar, but I think that technology solutions are there. My sense is the challenges are more the sort of regulatory and business case. So, it makes a lot of sense to have solar concentrated in a community and have some of your controllers that would make your solar more sophisticated so that it's more grid sensitive. It's, can serve multiple customers.
So I imagine there is a sort of a research agenda that you could set to parallel, in a sense, the development of the topology.
Well, I would turn that around and say, Fred, come help us. What is the research agenda for community solar? And, that is something I wanted to mention when we're looking ahead. I mentioned that the PUC has renewed the program. That means we're going to embark on a new investment plan cycle. The program is sort of envisioned in 2 5-year investment plan cycles. And so we'll be doing public workshops. We usually put out a straw in terms of here's where we think the research opportunities are, but we really welcome input. We don't know all the needs, we don't know all the technologies, and we want researchers and policymakers, community leaders to help shape what that research agenda is.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that we hope to do with the consortium is pull together some intelligence and be able to communicate back and forth. Well, just as an example, a close relationship with grid alternatives allows us to focus what their interests are in the disadvantaged communities in Riverside and San Bernardino areas. That's a priority of yours, it's a priority of ours. I think that we can pull together some partnerships and perhaps develop some initiatives as a result, as a consequence. So that's the sort of thing that I think would be very helpful.
Fantastic. Couple avenues that might facilitate that. The Public Utilities Commission is initiating a process. They've hired a consultant to facilitate a dialogue with external stakeholders, the Energy Commission and our researchers, the utilities and their researchers, and the policymakers at the PUC. And the first one is around equity. And so they really want to explore what's worked in current projects, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the needs. And so they've set up a series of 3 workshops around equity, and I'd be happy to share that and would encourage you and others to participate in those workshops and share what you think, some of the opportunities are. I'd also, I'm, one person, but we have technical experts in the solar area. They'd be happy to talk with you and your consortium on community solar and what some of the research opportunities are. We're sensitive when we're in the middle of a solicitation. We don't have conversations, but any other time we welcome that to know what are the needs and what are the thoughts on research opportunities.
Well, I think that's tremendous, and sort of the idea is to build these partnerships and exchange as much information back and forth as we possibly can. So I'm just very grateful to you for making this time available.
Our strength is in, good partnerships. So I just encourage people to participate in our process. If you're a researcher, get on our mailing list for upcoming solicitations. If you're interested in any aspect of this, participate in our workshops. One kind of integrative solicitation that we have planned that might be in the, kind of in the solar consortium area is something we're calling the Next Epic Challenge, and it's a design competition for affordable multi-use construction. So we're really looking at bringing in renewable storage, efficiency technologies in an affordable way. And so the first phase of this will be a design competition, and the second phase will be a build out of the winner. So that solicitation is planned in about a month. We also have I can't remember if it's on the street yet. I think it's a planned solicitation for solar heating and cooling for industrial and commercial applications. So that may be of particular interest to the consortium.
Thank you. That's all really good information. And we hope to continue this relationship, build it, and come up with some amazing stuff as a result of the partnership. So thank you so much for this time and your—
Yeah, it's great to talk with you.
Yeah, your guidance of the EPIC program and the Research and Development Division has just been wonderful.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You all take care.
Thank you.